Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Now it's time for the sweet sounds of Nerdery and Murdery.
You're an idiot.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to episode 3 of Nerdery and Murdery.
The Trois episode, as it were.
We're still recording on day 1, so we just finished with the very dark discussion over Sylvia Likens.
Bit of a downer.
It is a bit of a downer, and I had a lot of notes on it, and I was reading from my bullet points, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm reading. I've got a lot of stuff that I've got down here.
Wow, a lot of names.
Yeah, a lot of names. That one really had a lot of names. I mean, the one I'm covering today too kind of goes back and forth with a lot of things, and there's a lot of different names in here. So as we kind of get better on this, I'll try to sound less like I'm reading.
Right on.
But it is, again, a lot of information that we're going through. So this has been great so far. I've enjoyed doing this. I've enjoyed talking the stories. I mean, much as I can enjoy my part, but I've enjoyed listening to yours. And, especially talking about the board game that we talked about last time. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Again, dear listeners, you should check that bad boy out. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's a fun game. So yeah. I mean, since we've kind of been sitting here the whole day so far, not a whole lot to sit here and recap and go over.
No.
So if you want, I guess we can just get right to it with
Okay.
with what our nerdery is for this week.
I'm so happy on this subject. My middle child, Chloe, and I wax poetic about this particular subject quite a bit. We're both really into it. It is the amazing and wonderful Twin Peaks by David Lynch.
So when you're talking about Twin Peaks, are we talking about Twin Peaks original? Are you talking about Firewalk with Me? Are we talking about the latest release?
Yes.
Okay, all right, outstanding. So I've never seen Firewalk with Me. That's the only one I have not seen.
It's a prequel.
Right.
Colin McLaughlin is not in it that much.
I love him.
The two FBI agents in the opening of that are played by Kiefer Sutherland and Chris Isaac.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I knew that about Chris. I think I remember hearing that. Yeah, I missed Twin Peaks when it was first on.
So did I.
The reason I went back was when they were doing the new episodes that Showtime put out. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I'm going to go back and watch it. And I enjoyed them. I will say, and maybe you'll get to this and whatnot, I may be jumping way ahead, but the only thing there were two things I didn't like about the new episodes is the Kyle MacLachlan thing with his memory loss. I thought went way too long. And I didn't like the end of every episode where we were suddenly in the bar and these people who have nothing to do with nothing, they're just completely separate.
Just showcase the music.
Right, and then the music. So those were the two things that I didn't like about it. But
I think that was the whole point, that David Lynch just wanted to showcase some of the music.
And was the really freaky part, and you know what I'm talking about, was that during the re-release or the original?
That was during
the re-release.
Yes,
okay.
He went right off into the freaky or Lynchian deep end.
Yeah.
I am the water. I am the well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. So, sorry.
No. That's actually kind of what we're talking about. So, Twin Peaks, for the uninitiated, is a television series by Mark Frost and David Lynch. David Lynch, famed indie director. He gave us things like Eraserhead and Elephant Man and Dune and Blue Velvet.
I didn't know he did Elephant Man.
Yes, he did.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
wow. Okay.
And with that knowledge, the next time you go back and watch it, and
I don't know that I'll watch that ever. That was traumatic enough the first time.
David Lynch is really good about portraying trauma. So he wanted to make another movie with his friend and writing partner, Mark Frost. And they tried a couple of different films and they didn't get off the ground. And they were talking to Tony Krantz, and he wanted them to do a television show. And Lynch didn't want to do a television show. So Tony Krantz took Lynch to Nibbler's Restaurant in Los Angeles. What a lovely, lovely name for a restaurant. And said, you should do a show about real life in America the same way you did Blue Velvet. So the idea behind Blue Velvet and essentially Twin Peaks is it's this little idyllic town in small town America that is not nearly as idyllic as it looks. It's not very long that you notice that there's all kinds of crazy things happening in this town, and as the series progresses, you come to realize that the crazy things in the town happens because of its proximity to these horrible nexuses of energy.
Right.
Yeah, a good nexus or the White Lodge, and a bad nexus or the Black Lodge. But you don't know that at the onset. At the onset, it is a guy goes out fishing. He looks down, and there's this bundle wrapped in plastic. He opens the bundle, and it's the prom queen, Laura Palmer. And that's what starts the series. It's the murder, trying to find out the murder of Laura Palmer. Now, the original idea for the whole series was they were going to do a mystery every season, and they would solve the mystery like part of the way into the next season, but they had been setting up the second mystery, which is what they did. The problem is the second mystery, the mystery of the white and black lodges, just wasn't as good or as gripping as the Laura Palmer mystery.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember when Twin Peaks was live on, broadcast TV. We didn't have memes back then,
No.
but you had catchphrases that would just capture America.
Mm-hmm.
You go back in the 70s.
Log lady.
Who killed JR?
Yeah.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, who killed Laura Palmer?
Who killed Laura Palmer was a big thing,
Yeah.
and you would hear that or see it all over the place because it was very popular for as weird as it was.
Yeah,
and
it was Lynchian. It was very, very strange.
Well, and it was very soap opera-y. Very soap opera-y.
Yeah, and okay, so I had a teacher who knew I loved David Lynch because I'd seen Dune and Eraserhead and Blue Velvet blew me away. I thought it was just a brilliant film, even though I was probably a little young to be watching it because it is a dark, dark film. But what fascinated me about it was the same idea of the small town America with this dark secret underneath, this dark underbelly. Even though Twin Peaks is a smaller town than the town that happened,
Right.
Blue Velvet happened in. And so I had this teacher who was like, "You loved Blue Velvet, you should check this out." And I sat down and watched the third episode because that's what was on. We weren't really recording anything in my house.
Right. Yeah, back then where, if you hadn't put it on a VCR, it was gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
You might get to see it in a couple of years when they hit a rerun.
Right.
So the scene I walked into was everybody sitting around eating these sandwiches around this table, and they were talking, but their mouths were full of bread, so you couldn't understand it. And there was this one kid in an Indian headdress who was just moaning, and it made no sense. So I turned it off. I'm like, okay, this is way too Lynchian for me. So I went away from it, and then I saw the movie Fire Walk With Me. I thought, man, this is really good. It's a shame that the series wasn't any better. And it was my wife who was like, you really...
I enjoyed it.
Really, really would get... And I did. I sat down and I watched it. This about 15 years ago, and was just enamored.
Well, see, and I watched the whole series within the last, 5-6 years, because I watched it right before the Showtime one came out. So it's all pretty fresh to me.
1990, and it was very good for 1990.
There was a lot of cheese factor involved.
Yes.
A lot of cheese factor. I mean, there was the David Lynch portraying the FBI boss,
who can't hear.
Right, who can't hear and has to shout everything.
Itself, yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan's character, the FBI agent, he was so fascinated with good coffee.
Yes. This is a great cup of coffee.
Yes.
Best damn cup of coffee in the Northwest.
Yes. And so there was a lot of cheese factor involved, but it was very, I remember watching it and just like, okay, I want to know what's going on. Yeah. I want to understand.
In the sheriff's department, they would have donuts on the table.
Donuts and coffee.
Yeah, at the very opening, it was a box of donuts. By the end of the investigation of Laura Palmer's murder, the entire table was full of donuts.
Yes,
3 and 4 high, and it was just little things like that. You eventually find out who killed Laura Palmer, but then again, you don't.
I was going to say, because it was never really crystal cut clear. Yes, they had
Leland.
I wasn't going to say that, but okay.
It's 30 years
spoilers.
old.
Oh, okay.
There are no spoilers in Twin Peaks if it's 30 years old.
Okay. Yeah. So they were saying it was the dad, but I didn't think they ever definitively proved it.
Oh no, it was physically the dad, but he was essentially possessed by this otherworldly character called Bob.
Right.
And how Bob came into being was the actor who played Bob was a set dresser, right? And they were shooting a scene, just kind of an interesting side note, and he was kind of tucked behind the bed, and they shot through the room, and you kind of just barely half saw his face in a reflection. And David Lynch went, that's the guy. he knew in his mind that Leland was going to be killing her, but he wanted to incorporate this other guy. So the story about how Bob had basically inhabited Leland in childhood and had been with him his whole life kind of became part of the story. And it's captivating because, again, it starts out as this normal little town, and it gets progressively stranger. There's a woman, the log lady, who talks to her log.
Right.
Because it is essentially a part of her husband's soul is trapped in the tree that he was cutting down when he was killed, and she talks to this log. They brought her back for the...
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
she died very shortly after her scenes were filmed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, as did Miguel Ferrar.
Did he die? Yeah, I guess he did.
That is George Looney's first cousin.
Yeah. The log lady, though, I thought it was, that was one of the things I always thought was so funny. When the log lady wanted to see you, that was the most important thing. You went to go see the log lady.
Yes, because she had information from the nether regions.
Right.
And General Briggs, or Colonel Briggs? General Briggs?
Colonel.
Okay, he was an Air Force colonel who had also investigated Operation Blue Book back in the day.
Project Blue Book, yep.
Yeah, and he was kind of part of the whole weird paranormal investigations the U.S. government did back in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he lived in Twin Peaks essentially because he was investigating the paranormal things that were going on there. And he decided it was such an idyllic town that he would raise his family there. And again, from the outside, it was totally idyllic until you really got in and investigating in Laura Palmer's murder and how she was, she was perceived one way by a group of people and another way by another group of people. And it's a little about perception, I think, too.
Well, and David Lynch, his stuff is so weird. Some people just can't take it. I mean, what was that movie he made? Lost Highway. Yeah. I couldn't get all the way through that one because it was just so weird.
They're bouncing around different realities, which even happened in the remake of Twin Peaks. At the very end, they go into a different reality,
right? Where
Laura Palmer didn't die.
Right. That's the end where he goes to her house.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's dead, wrapped in plastic.
God. One of the things that I do like about it, I love very, and I think I'm using this word right, surreal things like Inside the Black Lodge, things that are just so grossly and I'm saying grossly, not as in gross, but so hugely visual and so out there. I love stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons I absolutely love Eyes Wide Shut is the whole scene inside the sex house.
Yes.
Is just so surreal and out there and it's very cultish and it's very, it's so, I just, all that stuff just fascinates me. And I love the stuff inside the Black Lodge.
Yes.
I absolutely love that when they were, it was so weird.
Yes.
And you just couldn't tell what was going on, but that was, that was cool.
Yeah. It just, these odd characters like the Mike's arm, which there's a character named Mike, who cut his own arm off because it was evil and it became a person in the Black Lodge. That spoke oddly.
Right.
Yeah. It was the same actor that played Samson in Carnival. I can't remember the actor's name.
I didn't watch Carnival. I still want to go back and watch that, but I didn't watch it.
He was really, really great, in that role, talking backwards, but it also is talking forwards.
Yeah. The giant being a waiter, but also this strange giant who is from another place. Right. Arrived in the ball of light, if I remember right.
Yes. It's mental gymnastics. That's the only way I can.
No, that's yeah. I mean, that's a very good description of Twin Peaks because, yeah, I mean, it's going to bounce all around, and so many weird things are going to happen,
but also within a story arc,
right? Yeah,
and a
absolutely.
lot of really good television is that way. I would say because of Twin Peaks. I mean, they got they saw this and went, you know what? They can tell that story. We can tell our story in a similar way. We can set it in this place and show what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed Twin Peaks a whole bunch. I thought they were going to make yet another season.
Oh, there's still plans
are
to,
they?
But the problem is Mark Frost and David Lynch don't have it in them yet to do it. So it may be a couple more years. But yes, Showtime has already greenlit it. They said, whatever you guys are going to do. The numbers were fine.
Yeah.
We loved it. So they're perfectly willing to do another season.
Interesting.
Again, David Lynch is not past the idea, but he's got to get it, worked out. And Mark Frost is kind of the same way. But yeah, they convinced them to do this series back 1988, 1989. And so they greenlit the series. Of course, you've got the set dresser. And the series evolved as they were shooting it. So some ideas weren't there at the beginning. They just were like, hey, this is a great idea. Let's go ahead and use it. And that's kind of what happened with the new series, the third season, as it were, that they got some ideas as they were going along.
Third season. Wasn't that's 4?
The return.
Wasn't that... Because there were 2 seasons of that.
There were 2 seasons of the original.
And there were 2 seasons of the Showtime one.
Nope, just 1 season.
Was
it was just really long.
Oh,
it was
okay.
1 episode. Because the first season was only, I think, 10 or 12 episodes. And the second season was a regular 20.
Right. Back when shows had 24 episodes a season.
Yes, which is a bad idea. I really do. I think 24 episodes in a season is a bad idea.
It's
you get
very
filler.
You do get filler, and it's very long now that I'm used to a 10, 12 episode season. Because I've gone back multiple times and watched past shows, Friends, Voyager. Voyager was one when I went back and watched it, in 24 episodes in a season. There were times where I'm like, I'm enjoying this, but man, can we move along a little bit? Can we move
the story along a little bit?
Right. Friends, I didn't think that way. I mean, very honestly, Friends to me is one of the best comedies of all time. I absolutely love Friends. I think it's very watchable to go back and see it again,
I'm that way about the first 3 seasons of Friends. I think the first 3 seasons of Friends were brilliant. I think after that they ran out of ideas.
So that happens for a while. It actually happens for about a year and a half, and then Friends picks back up to their original 3.
Really?
Yeah, go back and watch it and power through, because I know exactly where you're talking about. There's some stuff that slows it down a bit. Yeah. One of those is the whole Joey and Rachel thing. That kind of slowed down for a little while. But no, it actually gets very, very, very good towards the end. I just, and I've enjoyed going back and watching that. Not to tail off on a Friends from Twin Peaks,
okay.
but yeah, no, that go back and watch it.
Okay.
Give it a shot.
I'll say that.
You have to get it on HBO Max now, because that's who
HBO
owns
Max.
it. Okay, and if HBO Max wants to sponsor us,
HBO Max. HBO Max, where you can see the Schneider Cut.
Which I have not watched yet.
What?
I haven't watched the Snyder Cut yet.
Watch it in 2 parts. It's
That's
4
what
hours.
I've heard. That's what I've heard.
It's 4 hours. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Again, when I was recommending Twin Peaks to Will. By the way, Will is considerably younger than us. And so a lot of these things we recommend to him.
But he is devastatingly handsome.
Devastatingly. Like a steak. I want to eat him.
Again, with the eating. Yeah.
He doesn't, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk, folks.
No. He likes being behind the scenes.
Best producer out there.
So, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
we tangented.
Yeah, we tangented. That's what we were talking about. way back in episode 1,
Yes.
how conversations like this started at the tabletop, where we would start on one path, and then we found ourselves, we just spider webbed out to other paths.
Yes.
And before we knew it, we're so far gone from the original conversation, and that's the point where somebody goes, "Wait a minute, whose turn is it again?
Yes.
Are we playing a game?"
What are we doing? What? What do I do?
Yeah. So that happened here.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so Twin Peaks. You definitely want to give it a... Yeah, he's considerably younger to us, Will is. So when we said Twin Peaks, he was like, what's that?
No, definitely not the restaurant. No, it is definitely not the restaurant.
No,
TV
no.
show from the 90s, and then they released the sequel just a few years back.
Yeah, and I would recommend watching at least the first season of Twin Peaks. I would say the first season and the first 4 or 5 episodes of the second season, so you know how the story ends, and then you can go into the next one.
Showtime
Yeah,
one.
the second season, it did kind of drag a little bit. And
Quite a
David
bit.
Lynch and Mark Frost talk about that. They were off doing other things. Even though David Lynch was in it.
Right.
Like, he was Kyle MacLachlan's boss.
The FBI boss that couldn't hear
had
and
a
shouted at everybody.
Yes. Except for one person.
He wasn't deaf. He just couldn't hear well.
Yes.
He misheard everything and then screamed all of his lines.
Yeah, which is really funny since he was the director.
Yes. Worth a watch. Definitely worth a watch.
Yes, you definitely should check out the Twin Peaks and apparently Friends.
Yes.
Past the 3rd, 4th season, somewhere around in there.
Yeah. Keep watching all the way through. Awesome. Good stuff.
Excellent.
Good stuff. I love Twin Peaks.
And I want to circle around back to Voyager. I still think it's the worst Star Trek series.
Yeah. Maybe we should take that up at some point. Let's talk about Star Trek a little bit.
I would love to talk about Star Trek a little bit.
We could do that. That's a subject. I don't want to get into that now because we would tail off into so much stuff. But I think that's a good conversation for another time.
Star Trek. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, then I guess we're ready to go back to murder. So thanks, Zig, for Twin Peaks. And now I'm going to go into mine. We again forgot that at the beginning of the episode we were supposed to announce who we were. It would probably be helpful.
Hi, I'm Zig. I'm Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey of Murdery. We need to put that at the front somewhere. So learning as we go along.
Whoopsie.
So for my true crime this week, I'm covering a man who became known as H.H. Holmes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
You've heard of him?
Yeah, H.H. Holmes.
You've heard of him?
I've heard of this one.
Fantastic. So I got most of my notes from Wikipedia,
Nice.
crimemuseum.org,
Nice.
history.com,
Nice.
and there was a documentary I watched. I think it was on Hulu.
Yes, H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes, Original Evil. So have you watched it?
I believe so.
Oh, so then you know the hook
ago.
at the end.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Because I don't know how recent the developments were on this. So
Sometimes I will start watching stuff and go off on a tangent and go do something else.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. So H.H. he was born Herman Webster Budget in Gilmanton, New Hampshire in 1861, May 16th, 1861.
During the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What was kind of interesting about him growing up is number one, his family were devout Methodists.
Okay.
Very devout. And in every article I ever read, there was nothing unusual about his childhood. A lot of times that you'll find in murderers or serial killers, there was, abuse, trauma, killing of animals, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. There was something that really kind of twisted him up. And for H.H., there was nothing. He seemed to have a very ordinary childhood.
Just regular, run-of-the-mill, 1880s or 1870s childhood.
1861 is when he was born.
Yep.
He graduated high school at 16.
Okay.
So, he was obviously a good student. He met a woman named Clara Lovering, in nearby town of Alton, and he was a teacher. They got married in 1978.
Okay.
And then they had a son on February 3rd of 1880. I found that he was in Alton an accountant and a city manager.
Okay.
And I left that in because I think it's kind of interesting as he kind of progresses along his path, just different things that he does. He actually left being a city manager and accountant in 1882, because he decided to go to the University of Michigan in the Department of Medicine and Surgery.
Okay.
Very interesting to turn your life towards that.
Yeah.
Here's where things kind of took a turn for...
I was just about to say, I get it, taking a turn.
For our HH, because it was here that he learned about human dissection.
Okay.
Yes. He actually learned under the chief anatomy instructor at the college, and he worked in the anatomy lab until he graduated in 1884.
Okay.
So only 2 years that he was in at the University of Michigan. His wife Clara, she left him in 1984. There was reports from housemates, so I guess they lived with people, that he was very violent towards Clara, and she never saw him again.
Okay. She take the kid?
I don't know about that. I don't know if she took the kid or not. It just said that she left him in 1984, but they didn't file for divorce.
Okay.
This comes into play a little while later. Herman, at that point, he moved to New York, and it was there where there were some rumors that he was seeing a young boy.
Okay.
As you do,
I
guess, something. And then the boy disappeared. Yep. Well,
maybe hiding that particular part of yourself could spur on some craziness.
Could be.
Maybe.
It's possible. People that confronted Herman, he said that the boy had just gone back to Massachusetts, to his family in Massachusetts. There was no boy, there was no body, and so no investigation could stick. But Herman felt the eyes upon him, so away he fled, and this would be very common with him. He flees the scene a lot.
Right.
Yes. He moved to Philadelphia from here, and he got a job at the state hospital, but he didn't stay there long. But he did land a job at a drugstore. So now we've gone into pharmaceuticals. Now we come to a boy again. There was a boy who mysteriously died after Herman sold him drugs from the store.
Okay.
Well, the police tried to accuse him, but he denied any wrongdoing and then flew away, and away he went, and now he's gone to Chicago. And now here where he has changed his name to Henry Howard Holmes. And that was
he fled and changed his name.
Yes.
Yes, nothing suspicious there.
Yes, so now we have H.H. Holmes, as he will be led to know. While in Chicago, he married a woman named Murda. Now, he never divorced Clara.
Yeah. So legally he can't be married to Murda. So
legally he can't. But now we have bigamy. So he's now married to Murda. He filed for divorce from Clara a few weeks after marrying Murda, claiming that Clara was cheating on him.
Okay.
But the divorce never got finalized. It was dismissed on June 4th, 1891 on the grounds of want of prosecution.
Huh.
Right. So
want of prosecution.
And so now we have two wives.
Okay, two wives.
He and Murda.
Two wives and possibly two boys.
Well, one boy. They had the one boy, Robert. Mm-hmm. Now
No. I mean, two missing boys.
Yes. One that died for sure. One that disappeared.
Okay.
H.H. and Murda did have a daughter, Lucy Theodate Holmes. I thought that name was fascinating.
Lucy Theodate Holmes.
And then suddenly we have H.H. in Denver. And he has married yet another woman.
Another marriage.
Yes, this is Georgina York.
Did he keep his name as Holmes?
He did, apparently. But I couldn't find any reason why he was in Denver. The whole Denver thing was very strange. And I guess the articles just put it in because he married yet a third woman. So he's now married to three women.
Okay, so he just ran off on his wife and...
It didn't say. It didn't say because he returns to Chicago.
What?
He returns to Chicago. Yeah, he's back there in 1886
with the third wife.
Georgina doesn't come into play much anymore.
So maybe she's still back in Denver?
Maybe.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
You know, and what it kind of does, you get the idea as we go along with H.H. He was a con man. He was a liar.
Yeah.
He never told the truth about anything.
Right on.
So which kind of comes into play on a lot of things later on, you know, what's true and what's not. Back in Chicago, he's again working at a drugstore. And he apparently did very well there, and he ended up buying the store.
Okay.
This was the drugstore's at the northwest corner of South Wallace Avenue and West 63rd Street in Inglewood. So those of you that are
Chicago people.
know the Chicago area may know where it is. So he bought the store. So I guess he had some money at this point because he then purchased the empty lot across the street.
Okay.
And he wanted to turn it into a hotel. There was the World Expo. I didn't write it down. Some World Expo that was coming up, and he thought he could make a lot of money with a hotel. You know, with a hotel when people came in for the
Expo in Chicago
for the big thing. Yeah, the big thing. So the construction began in 1887. It was a 2-story. It was to be mixed use with apartments, retail space, and a new drugstore. So he was going to have a new drugstore in there
across the street from his other drugstore. Okay.
Yep. He added a third floor in 1892, and this is what he was going to use as the hotel.
Okay.
So in this, the first floor was the storefront. The second story was elaborate torture rooms. Yes, those are going to come in now. The third floor were apartments, and the basement is where he would perform his works on bodies.
Wow.
People that were disappearing.
This is a nice hotel. Oh, what's on the second floor? No, you don't want to go there.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about the hotel after a little bit of this. He actually got investigated because the suppliers of his furniture said he wasn't paying them. And H.H. was actually hiding materials in various rooms throughout the building. And then the press caught on that he was being investigated. The third floor mysteriously caught fire after that. And H.H. had taken out an insurance policy on the building with no less than 4 companies, and they all sued him.
I'll bet.
Then we have a mistress, Julia Smythe.
Okay. So 3 wives and a mistress.
Yes.
And 2 boys.
Yes. And Julia and her husband, Alex, were residents in the hotel.
Okay.
The husband found out about the affair and bolted, left the wife and her daughter behind.
Okay.
And in Christmas of 1981, both Julia and the daughter disappeared.
1981?
1891. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
1891. Don't think it was 1991. H.H. would later claim that Julia died during the abortion, but nobody knows what happened to them. They just disappeared. Yes. Probably find out where they disappeared to soon. There was another woman in May of 1892 named Emmeline Sigarand. She began working at the hotel, and she began an affair with H.H.
Okay.
So this guy was apparently a pretty good con man.
Yeah.
She disappears on Christmas of 1892.
It's a Christmas thing.
Yes. And then there was an Edna Van Hassel who also around the same time just disappeared off the face of the earth and was a resident at the hotel. Yes. So we have people disappearing. Then for some reason, H.H. began work at the chemical bank on Dearborn Street. And here he's going to meet Benjamin Pitezel, Pitezel.
Wait. So he has the hotel.
He has the hotel. He has a drugstore, and now he's going to work at a bank.
Why?
It's never really clear. It's never really clear why he's holding all these jobs.
He's just trying to keep his chops up.
Maybe
In case he's got a bolt.
Maybe, and a lot of it is about greed. He wants to make money.
Yeah. Well, he's working at a bank. I mean,
right.
You ask the bank robber, why do you rob banks? Well, that's where all the money's kept.
Right. Petizal, however that is, he's going to end up becoming HH's right-hand man for a lot of the criminal schemes and insurance frauds and that he does and things like this. So he's kind of off to the side and being the side henchman. Then I found this interesting here. So now we have Minnie Williams. She got a job with HH as a stenographer. Mm-hmm. And he convinced her to sign over her property in Fort Worth, Texas.
All
yes.
right. Hometown girl.
Yes.
Fort Worth, Texas.
And in Chicago, they rented an apartment as man and wife. So now we're wife number 4, it sounds like.
But so he's got 2 wives in Chicago already.
Yes.
Okay.
It appears so.
Yeah.
It appears so.
Or one in Chicago and then one in Denver.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Because Georgina doesn't really come much into play again.
Okay.
So this was Minnie Williams, and she wrote a letter to her sister Nanny to come and stay with them because they were going to HH has told Minnie that they were going to go to Europe. So Minnie invited her sister Nanny, and neither one was ever seen again.
Both
disappeared.
The wife and the sister
both disappeared.
Oh.
I
don't like where this is going.
I know, right?
I mean, these are homegirls. I'm not happy about this.
I know. Well, in July 1884, he left Chicago, went to Fort Worth.
Okay.
Here he was going to try to put up another hotel, just like in Chicago.
Okay.
But he was arrested. He conned several suppliers, and he was arrested for selling goods he did not own. So he's now in jail.
1890s?
This is 1884.
Okay, so that's the time of
it might be 1894. I might have written my date down wrong down here.
It's so long-haired Jim.
Yeah.
Long-haired Jim probably got him. Yeah, kind of a noted sheriff of Fort Worth, Texas back then. He caught a lot of folk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if HH was one of those. So while he was here in jail, now he meets, he gets a new friend, Marion Hedgepeth. And he and Hedgepeth decide they're going to start conning people out of insurance money.
Okay.
They decide they're going to con an insurance company out of $10,000. Forgot to look up what that is in today's. So what they were going to do is
it's a lot.
Yeah, I would assume so. They decide they're going to take out an insurance policy on HH's death or on HH's life, and then they were going to fake his death.
Okay.
So they need
a body.
They needed a body. HH promised Hedgepeth $500 if he could find him a lawyer who they could trust, because they needed a lawyer for this scam.
Of course.
And they got Geoffrey Howe, who was a lawyer in St. Louis, and he thought the plan was inspired.
Nice.
Yes.
What a great idea.
So, but it wasn't gonna come to anything because the insurance companies became suspicious and they wouldn't pay out.
Right on.
So this plan now failed. So now HH goes back to his friend Benjamin Petizal, however that is, and they're going to try this plan again, only with Petizal's death and not Holmes.
Okay.
Petizal would be killed in a laboratory accident. However, HH used chloroform to knock him out and set him on fire.
Oh.
And Holmes collected the insurance money.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're going to fake your death, but I need you to be here.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this right. Here, just smell this rag.
Yeah, smell this rag for a second. Smell this. Smell this. It's okay. Just smell it. It's good. It's good. It's good. Right. And then set him on fire.
Set him on fire.
Yes.
Wow.
So then HH goes to Petizal's widow and somehow cons her into giving him custody of her 2 children. I know. This gets so confusing. Right. No, I know. I mean, this has to be the greatest con man ever, because he that was another thing I couldn't really find. How did he do this? But he convinced her to give the custody of her 2 children. These were Alice and Nellie.
Huh.
Right.
Huh.
So what he told, and I guess maybe it's because what he told Petizal's widow, he told her that Petizal was alive and in London, and she needed to go ahead and start traveling. So maybe he told her, I'll take care of the kids.
Go see him.
While you go to London.
Because the husband probably told the wife, hey, we got this scheme. We're gonna.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if they told the scheme or not.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how she got the children. So H.H. traveled around the country and into Canada with them. But then he forced the kids into a trunk and locked them in, and then drilled a hole that he put a hose in and gassed them to death.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. He buried their nude bodies in the cellar of his house he was renting in Toronto.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, now we've got Frank Geyer who steps in this picture, and he's a detective from Philadelphia. I believe he was a Pinkerton.
Frank Geyer.
Yes,
Pinkerton.
because the Pinkertons are eventually going to come into play here. Frank Geyer was on H.H.'s trail, and apparently had been for a while.
Well, if he's from Philadelphia, he may have been on his trail for a long time.
May have been.
Yeah.
He followed him from Philly to Indianapolis, where H.H. had a small cottage that he had rented. And then he also bought the same drugs in Indianapolis that he used to chloroform Petizal.
Okay.
So he was putting all these things together.
Right on.
He'd also followed him to a repair shop where his knives had been sharpened. It was actually here in Indianapolis. Holmes murdered another child. They actually found the bones and the teeth in the chimney of the cottage.
Good Lord.
So yeah, we've got some murderers of children. H.H. then fled to Boston, but he couldn't escape, and he was arrested on November 17th, 1894 in Boston by the Pinkertons. They got him on horse theft, which was a very small crime, but allowed him to hold him.
Yeah.
Because they knew if they let him go, he's going to go ghost again.
He's going to be gone.
Yeah, he's going to absolutely go ghost. Frank Geyer discovered the girls' bodies that he had buried under the house.
In Toronto.
In Toronto. And because they found that, they now had full authority to investigate his hotel in Chicago.
Where they found the floor.
Yes. It had become known as the Castle and would later become known as the Murder Castle. So H.H. was on trial by October in 1894, and he was sentenced to death for Petizal's murder. They were able to get him on that, as well as the children. And this is where he kind of started confessing a whole lot of stuff that people aren't sure what's true and what's
true,
not.
what's not. Yeah.
He confessed to killing 27 people total in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto. However, some of the people he claimed to murder were still alive.
We're still kicking.
So they're like,
this guy
you didn't.
This guy couldn't tell the truth to save his own life.
Yes.
Literally could not tell the truth to save his own life.
They did figure out that all of his employees, hotel guests, fiancés, and wives were all required to have life insurance policies where he was listed as the beneficiary.
Well,
that was a requirement.
Wow. So that's where he got all the money.
The Hearst newspaper that paid Holmes $7,500 for his confession, at which point he began to tell...
You said the Hearst newspaper? You mean the Kane newspaper? I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
We'll get into that later.
Yes, absolutely. This is where he really kind of began to just go out on a limb and tell so many things. One of the things I noted is sometimes he claimed innocence while others he claimed to be working for the devil himself.
Right on.
He even wrote that his facial features had now changed and he would now resemble the devil.
Okay.
Yeah. On 17 May 1896, he was hung. He was 35 years old.
Wow, that's a lot of living in 35 years. That's a lot of killing in 35 years.
His neck didn't snap, and so he ended up strangling to death, taking about 15 to 20 long minutes to die.
Ouch.
Yes.
That sounds awful.
And his friend Hedgepeth was shot dead on New Year's Eve in 1909. In 2017, I mean, the stories of H.H. have just gone and gone and gone. And in 2017, there were so many rumors that Holmes didn't actually get executed that they exhumed his body. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was his body.
It was him.
Yes. The castle or the murder hotel. So to go back to that, because this is a lot of where people disappeared and how it happened. During the building, he hired and he fired many architects and many construction people, and then he would fire them so that he was the only one who really knew the plans of the castle.
He changed the plans so that
The hallways were all a maze. There were 51 doorways that opened into nothing but walls.
Okay.
There were 100 rooms without windows and stairs that went nowhere.
Like the Winchester House.
Like the Winchester House, yes. There were soundproof rooms that would lock from the inside. They had gas pipes that were controlled by a panel in his closet. The closets had peepholes and secret panels that led to secret passageways. Trapdoors in floors and ceilings that opened up to grease chutes that funneled victims down to the basement, again, where he was doing the torturing of the bodies and the mutilation down there. When Holmes was arrested, they found a human-sized oven that could heat up to 3,000 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And he would turn his victims to untraceable ashes at that point. I mean, they were gone. Many of the guests of the hotel disappeared forever. And then Holmes was turning around. He was selling bones to medical schools.
Oh yeah.
So there's a theory that he was basically hiding his murders in plain sight. He'd kill them and sell the bones to medical schools.
Sell the bones to medical schools and probably take anything that they had left over.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was making money 2 or 3 different ways there.
Yeah, I mean they don't know the exact number of his victims. They were gassed and beaten, tortured. Most bodies were never found. Most were probably sent down the chutes into the basement to be incinerated. They would be disposed. There were acid baths. Some were skinned and kept for observation, while others were reduced to bone and sold.
Wow.
Yeah. The caretaker of the castle actually committed suicide with strychnine. He said he was haunted by nightmares and couldn't sleep.
I'll bet.
And in 1895, the castle was almost destroyed by a fire, but today the building is new and is a post office, which I thought was funny. So here's where the recent turn is that I thought was absolutely fascinating.
Wait, more recent than exhuming the body, just to make sure?
Yes. There's a new theory. So there's a guy named Jeff Mudgett. He's a direct descendant of Holmes. Says he has 2 of H.H.'s diaries. And he believes that H.H. may have been Jack the Ripper.
Because he spent time in London.
Yes. So one of the entries in the diary claimed that H.H. knew who Jack the Ripper was. There were 11. Are you familiar with Jack the Ripper? So there were 11 murders that happened between April 1888 and February 1891 in Whitechapel, England.
Whitechapel.
So here's the case for H.H. being Jack the Ripper.
Just FYI, as an aside, Whitechapel is where Big Ben and Parliament are. Right there in the middle of the town.
Yep. So Jack the Ripper wouldn't lunge at his victims. First, he would choke them and lay them down before evisceration. H.H. was also very methodical and was a trained medic, adept at removing organs. Very much like Jack the Ripper. A lot of people believe that Jack the Ripper had medical training. The majority of H.H.'s victims were women, just like Jack the Ripper. The last official victim of Jack the Ripper was killed in her own bed versus the streets. And she wasn't simply cut open. She was utterly obliterated by the blade. And this was a big escalation from the previous killings, thinking that maybe the style had now evolved.
Yeah.
So that's where they're kind of thinking maybe, this was H.H. learning and evolving and whatnot.
Yeah. Before going back to Chicago to open a murder hotel.
I thought that this was interesting, that apparently H.H. always left a trail of business documents, which allowed for people to chart his movements later on, and he was very meticulous about it. However, between 1888 and 1889, the paper trail went quiet. And this coincides with the Jack the Ripper killings in London.
Wow.
And then there was a ship log that had an individual named H. Holmes that was a passenger that sailed to the UK from the UK to the US shortly after the Jack the Ripper's killing stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a letter that was sent to the media in London called Dear Boss. This is a very famous one that they think were sent by Jack the Ripper. H.H.'s descendant, Mudgett, he had an expert analyze the letter, and there were actually quirks in it that suggest an American wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Mudgett's had a forensic sketch create a portrait of Jack the Ripper. They had several witnesses who had seen Jack the Ripper with men shortly before they died, and the result was a portrait similar to H.H. Holmes.
Wow.
Yeah. So Mudgett, who is apparently an attorney, firmly believes that sketch alone would merit an arrest warrant if the case were active today.
Huh.
So that's the case for. Case against, the Dear Boss letter. Many experts say it was written by someone from the States, but most Jack the Ripper experts believe the letter to be a hoax by a hype-hungry journalist.
Right on.
So they lived on different continents, and there's no real evidence that H.H. traveled to Britain. The name Holmes isn't rare, so on that ship manifest could just be a coincidence.
It's a very common Scottish name.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
could
think
be.
So. Yeah.
H.H. was driven by the greed for money. He was greedy. He wanted money. Jack
the Ripper wasn't looking for money.
Jack the Ripper was for lust's sake.
Yeah.
It was killing for killing's sake. He killed poor, helpless, homeless women on the East End, sect workers. There really wasn't greed except for the greed for death.
Yeah.
H.H. was a con man, and he wanted to kill, but he wasn't irrational.
No.
This is something I didn't know. Jack the Ripper was actually not as precise with his murders as commonly believed. Some say it was no more precise than a butcher.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, I have heard that wasn't until the end where he was really good. Like the first murder was just it. Granted, you struck it up to nerves, I guess, but the first murder was just rough.
Yeah. The last thing against it is Jack the Ripper stalked the streets looking for victims, while H.H. lured his victims to him and took his time with them.
Yep.
So two different things, but that's the most current update on H.H. Holmes.
Wow.
And so you choose to believe whichever side you want at that point. The documentary I saw at the end of it pretty much said, yeah, he's not Jack the Ripper, pretty much. But I found it fascinating, the coincidences with it. That it could be Jack the Ripper. I'm really surprised that with DNA evidence and whatnot that I don't know if anybody's gone back to do DNA on Jack the Ripper yet. We're starting to see.
They were doing that. They were checking the Dear Boss letter, the saliva on it, and they were going to link it to an English aristocrat.
I've heard that before. I'm just surprised that we don't have anything yet. I mean, the DNA technology is growing by leaps and bounds.
They could pull DNA out of a Neanderthal.
Right.
There haven't been one of those around for 30,000 years.
Right.
Tell me you can't pull something off of an envelope from 150 years ago.
And I'd actually heard the other day that with DNA evidence as sophisticated, or with our technology as sophisticated it is with DNA evidence now, that we are probably seeing the end of the serial killer time, because it's going to be almost impossible. They're catching people. You can't get away with murder. It's too quick.
Yay us.
Yes, yay us. So that's the story of H.H. Holmes.
That was entertaining.
Good.
And just a little disturbing.
Just a little disturbing. Not quite as disturbing as the last one.
Oh my God.
So yeah. Sorry about that.
Holmes.
Sorry about that. But yeah, so that's H.H. Holmes. Again, love doing it. It's just been fun.
A lot of fun.
This has been fun.
More fun than a barrel full of live weasels.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Think about that for a second.
That is a lot of fun.
Live weasels in a barrel, lots of fun.
Yeah.
You ever had a ferret? Ferrets are great.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Well, that takes us to the end, and again, you can find us on Facebook at Nerd and Murd, the Nerdery and Murdery podcast. You can find us on our website, nerderyandmurdery.com. If you wish to contact the show, you can send an email to email@nerderyandmurdery.com. If you wish to email Zig directly and
Hi there.
talk to him about anything nerdery,
Please
he is
do.
at zig@nerderyandmurdery.com. If you want to talk to me about true crime, you can email me at Geoffrey@nerderyandmurdery.com. And as usual, if you want to send something to Will and ask why he continues to do this for us and put up with this, you can find him at will@nerderyandmurdery.com. Coming soon, we'll have Instagram and Twitter.
Send Will your condolences.
Send Will your condolences, because I
Yes.
think he's going to need it. He's got to do all the editing for this, so good luck to him. And so, yeah, with that...
So I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery. And we're both nerderyandmurdery.com. No, that's not even right. Wow, I messed this one up again.
Wow.
Let's take 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. We're
Take
Nerdery
3.
and Murdery, the podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Cue the music.